Are you familiar with the debunked pseudoscience of phrenology, dear Marko?
Did you just say phrenology?
Phrenology, yes.
Very much so. And
Great.
uh, uh, I always wanted to own one of those phrenology heads as an artifact.
Ooh.
I never quite got off my ass and got one, but they're common kind of, ornaments and curiosities which you can pick up in any kind of, head shop or whatever. But I love a
Headshot.
phrenology head. Yeah, no pun intended. Um,
But
but yes, I am aware that it's got like some pretty unsavory
sure.
connotations too, hasn't it? You know what I mean? The kind of the
Indeed.
ridges of the forehead, the overhanging brow. You know what I mean? Basically, if you feel a head with non-Caucasian characteristics, then
Yep.
that hey, maybe they're
There's
gonna rob
something
you.
horribly wrong
Yeah,
here.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes,
Yes. So
that's
yes, I
it.
am.
Yeah, that's right. It's the idea that you can tell pretty much everything about a person by the shape of their skull. And I mean absolutely everything. Like there are parts of your skull that determine things like your sex drive, your musical talent, how vain you are, and even your
Oh,
skin color, according to phrenologists. Just absolutely everything can be determined by feeling around.
you know, just the first of no doubt several kind of zigs and zags here, right? But I will never cease to be disgusted at the number of people I've come across in my life. Educated people, smart people, holders of office and pillars of the community who hold kind of secret undercover attachments to just not as pseudo science as phrenology, but some
Right.
fucking demonstrably fringe and idiotic fucking beliefs, man. It
Right.
it 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 blows my mind how you can both be educated and yet fucking
Yeah, subscribe to
hoodwinked
absolute
by
chicanery.
bunkery. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk a little bit about that in here because yeah, phrenology is complicated in that way, and I'll kind of get into why that is. But obviously from like now, like it's clear, obviously, this is not a real thing. I just think about like how I once showed you the awful things that they pulled from my head when I had like cysts
Yeah.
in my head, and they looked like two
Yeah.
little like crangs that they'd pulled
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of my head. And I have like a bump back here that
Ganglion.
like yeah. A bump back here that may someday become one of those. I'm not sure, but it also may be the scar for where they took out one that was starting to grow.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, but
Did I ever
stuff.
tell you about how I excised one of those of my own? I just fucking pulled it off my head.
I do believe you mentioned that.
I uh, I spent the first kind of 25 years of my life walking
Jeez.
around with this horrible kind of sphere of tissue
Did
dangling
it
off the
get
back of
bigger
my
or was it
neck.
always the same size?
Nah, it was always the same size. It sort
Okay.
of grew when I was a kid and just kind of stayed there. And every time I
Mm,
would go for a haircut, I would catch the fucking barber in the mirror, making
yeah.
some fucking weird face. I used to want to shave my head even when I had the choice, but I
Right.
would never dare because it was
Yeah,
so
because there's a
fucking
weird
difficult to
lump.
work around this. So I just bought one of those freezer pens in the end, that you use for verrucas and shit.
I
Um,
mean, I've never, but yeah, I've seen commercials for stuff like that.
and I just went to town on this bastard thing on the back of my head, just froze the fuck out of it, left it for a week. And I kind of I vividly remember waiting for a bus one day, and I just thought, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. It's just reached up into my hair, and just it came off in my hand, just this almost
That's like,
fossilized pearl.
yeah, more like a wart kind of situation than
Mm.
mine. You couldn't freeze off because they were like in sacks inside of my
Oh,
like under my scalp. There were these sacks with these big cysts inside of them. And certainly people try to do this themselves, but it's a good way to get an infection and die to do
yeah,
that.
sure.
They actually had to cut my head open and pull these things out to get to
So
them.
they were subdermal. Is that what you're telling
Subdermal.
me? They
Yeah,
were kind of
exactly.
between the
They
skull
were
and the
underneath,
and
and
the
it was
tissue.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it started when I was like in like seventh grade, and it was like the size of like the an eraser on a pencil, right? Like that's
sure.
about where when I like noticed it, I was like, oh, it's like a little thing. And I remember the doctor called it a fleshy nodule on my head.
I mean, what else could you call that? What did you call it? A bupsy? Is that what you referred to it as?
Oh, I
What
did
did you say?
not call
Did
it
you not?
that.
What did you say? What did you call
No,
it?
just
Didn't you
now?
have a little? No, no, no. When you
Oh,
told me about it first, didn't you have some kind of pet name for it?
no. You may be, I'm wondering if maybe you're confusing when I like referred to my father-in-law's leg nubbins.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm sure I remember you having some kind of pet cutie name for
No,
your head ganglion.
I never named my little crangs. No.
Well,
But
that's a
they,
memory I've
yeah,
fucking completely invented.
you were just thinking it in your head and you're like, don't tell her I'm thinking
I
her
was,
things are
yeah, it really
called
was. I remember thinking at the
pussy.
time, it's fucking strange. Like have you read The Dark Half? It's kind of like that, like naming one of your tumors and it taking
Right.
on a lot.
No, I never
Uh,
did that. It was like a thing that I tried to ignore existed, and then it was like the doctor was like, "Well, it'll probably stay like that," because she thought it was like a fleshy thing or whatever. And then over the years, it
what
got
did she call
bigger
it? A
and
fleshy
bigger.
nodule.
Fleshy nodule, yeah.
Yeah,
And then over the years, it got bigger and bigger, and then there were two of them, and they kind of grew together. And so it was like the front of my head just had these like big things. And so like when I tied my hair back, there was always kind of like a little
yeah.
bit of a bump
Gotta get
right
rid of
there.
that. Gotta
Got
get
rid
rid
of
of
that.
that.
So yeah, couldn't freeze it off. Had to cut me open to get to
While we're
those.
on the topic, so next, when is it? The Saturday after I come home from holiday. So the day after I come back from holiday,
Mm,
I've got an appointment to get this other eyelid.
nice. So you might be
Uh,
all eye patchy on that week's Joe Egg.
I might be, yes. But
Mm.
I think I could do it myself, you
No, do you? Do you think?
know. No, but rationally, I rationally believe I could take care of this myself.
I don't think
Especially,
things near your eyeball are just that's too
I
close
get
to danger.
I get that you're squeamish and I get that that's a danger, yes. But particularly having had the left one done and making notes, kind of thinking, right, what are they doing? Da, 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 da. I reckon I could repeat that procedure at home and save myself a whole lot of fucking trouble. Just make it nice and clean.
Uh-huh.
I I've actually walked this through in my head. I've got a
I'm
fucking
sure you
routine.
have.
I would construct a scalpel out of I would cut a razor blade in like a shank. I would make a little
Oh,
shank.
are you doing this in prison? Why can't you order one off Amazon?
You can't buy a scalpel off Amazon.
Scalpels are not a thing you can't get. That's like a normal thing. You can buy a scalpel.
Fuck out of here. Can you buy a
I
scalpel on
remember we had like
Amazon?
a little kit when I was growing up that had a scalpel in it. Like, it's not an impossible thing to obtain.
Son of a bitch, you can.
You can buy a scalpel.
Oh, this changes everything. I'm a doctor now.
Don't you dare cancel
I'm a
that.
fucking doctor now. Doctor giggles. The doctor is in.
Oh
Yeah, I
no.
would I would clean it up
Okay.
nicely, get my blade. Uh Not a clothes peg, but something similar to kind of clamp my eyelid open.
This also
Deep
feels like a
breath.
thing you could buy.
1, 2, 3, whoosh. Just
No. Oh. Mm-mm.
cut it out. Cut it out. Did I ever tell you about a friend of mine
This
who
is how
performed?
this is would be the origin story of why Mark has no eyelid for the rest of this show.
Nah, I think I could do it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a mate of mine performed uh surgery on his own fucking nutsack. Uh,
Mm-mm.
found a little fleshy nubbin in his ball bag that shouldn't have been there. Went to the doctor, had it, and was told that it was benign and was nothing of
Oh,
any long term danger. So
okay,
he was like, right,
at
okay.
least he did that first. I was like,
Went to the
surely.
GP first. There's just like a calcified little kind of weirdness in his fucking ball bag. Went home. I think he got tanked up on cough syrup and just fucking got it out. Just went in there and took it out.
It's incredible. Like these are the kinds of things
And we
that
we've
I can
got we've
see.
got
Yeah,
social
you have
health care.
healthcare. Like if an American did this, I'd be like, listen, I get it, but you don't have to do that. There's no reason to do surgery on your own ball sack. Just
Ball bag
next time
eyelids.
you get such an inclination, just think, there are Americans out there who have to do this. And then maybe
No,
just go to the GP.
I think there's a certain stoic honor in
Hmm.
treating your own ailments. Bite the fucking spoon, you know what I mean? Cut it out.
Oh, no, I'm happy to
Crack on
live
with
in
your
the
day.
age of
Take the kids to
medicine,
school.
which I
Yeah.
will, you know what? Let's get into it because let's talk about living in the age of medicine compared to when we decidedly did not.
Mm.
So, phrenology caught hold around the 1830s, when specifically here in the United States, but it's kind of around the
Was
world
it
around
big
the same
in the
time.
US? Yes.
So in the 1830s, American physician Dr. Charles Caldwell, who is one of the best known Western physicians in the world, got hold of the work of European doctors Francois Joseph Gall and John Gaspar Spurzheim. Gall based his initial inquiries off a theory he'd developed as a kid, which is better than getting
As
it
all
from
the
ghosts,
best
I suppose. But
medical That's all the best
uh,
medical theses are
yeah,
based on shit
he
you thought
said,
of when you were 9.
yeah, and this is very much a 9-year-old thought. Just get ready for this. He noticed that a lot of his classmates who were really good at memorizing stuff also happened to have protruding eyes. So he postulated that this must mean that the part of the brain behind the eyes is associated with verbal memory. That's a very, I mean, I've never
I,
noticed buggy eyes being particularly associated with memory, but I'm sure there was like a kid in his class who memorized shit all the time who,
you
you
know,
know, had big
look
eyes
at
and was like, that's gotta be it.
the pattern here is fucking wild, isn't it? Isn't it just insane how these things take hold? Phrenology made up by a fucking kid in school who thought, clever people had buggy eyes.
Right.
Fucking chiropractic, ghost learnings, the
Right.
the
Yeah.
wisdom of ghosts. It's
Precisely.
and yet it takes hold. How does this fucking stuff take root? It is wild to me.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll talk about that with this in particular. So by the time Caldwell picked up the trail, Gall and Spurzheim had been plugging away at their phrenological theories since about the turn of the century. So, around 1800, first decades, 1800, 1820, they'd been working
Mm.
on this. Caldwell, for his part, was more of like a Dr. Oz type. He hadn't been a practicing physician for quite a while, and he wasn't a researcher. It's more of just like a pop science blowhard.
Now I
Um,
don't know what Doctor Oz is or who
oh,
Doctor Oz is.
oh, that's incredible. So Dr. Oz, he is a famous doctor in the
Uh-huh.
United States who, at one point, was a practicing doctor, but certainly hasn't been for decades. He's just on TV, and he grasps on to like every bit of pseudoscientific nonsense that there is and shills it like there's no tomorrow.
I see.
And so yeah, he'll any kind of dumb supplement or holistic medical practice or anything like that. Dr. Oz is on TV and he's going to tell you about why it's going to change your life. Um,
Anti-vax?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think if he's not anti-vax, he's certainly anti-vax adjacent. I think he would at
Yes.
least not tell people to vaccinate,
Yes.
you know. And he, a few years ago, um, ran for Senate for Pennsylvania. And famously, because he is so rich and out of touch, he like kept trying to connect with people. He was running against John Fetterman, who at the time we didn't know was a terrible person, who was like a real man of the people type. And so Dr. Oz started trying to present himself as like a man of the people. And so he made videos like one where he went into a grocery store and he was like trying to be like, we're having some friends over, so I'm going to show you, the grocery prices that have gone up because of Joe Biden. I'm just trying to get some crudité. And it's like, what the crudité? It's like, what the, who is this man?
Crudité. Yeah.
So yeah, very rich doctor, promotes a lot of horse shit, is not practicing, but still sort of, he has the name Dr. Oz, so people trust him. And so that's what this guy basically was. He was, according to an article in the journal American History Review, quote, pompous and conceited, as well as a prolific speaker and writer, always vigorous, but frequently coarsely vituperative, which I
Ooh,
Googled and
very
means
good word.
basically,
Very good
yeah,
word.
it's a really good word, a word I've heard before, but I don't think I've ever looked up the meaning of. And it means basically that he reacted like an asshole when critiqued.
Say it again. Vituperative.
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 Virative.
Vituperative.
Vituperative. Love that.
Means
I would.
reacting poorly to criticism.
there would have been a time when I could have committed that to my long-term memory and used it in the future. Sadly, those days are gone.
We'll make like a word a day calendar or whatever, but it's
Oh,
just going to
that'd be
be
great.
vituperative every day.
Nice.
Remember, Marko,
Mm.
vituperative. So this article also points out that phrenology, unlike a lot of medical quackery of the time, didn't get its start as a snake oil type grift. Adherents to the ideas of phrenology, from its founders to its followers, deeply believed that they were onto something, which completely makes sense because I've talked about this on here before. I've talked about how I did a wisecrack video that we researched this. We don't totally get how insanely new modern medicine is.
Mm.
It wasn't really a science at all until the late 1800s and early 1900s. And the vast
Yes.
majority of medical science as we understand it now has only been since like the 1950s. It is
Yeah.
so new. One of my favorite books, Destiny of the Republic, which I keep promising to eventually cold open on, talks about the assassination of James A. Garfield in 1881. And the central reason he died is because germ theory wasn't popular yet, and in fact was basically scoffed at. So just under 150 years ago, an American president died because people were like, tiny microorganisms that make you sick, absurd, and just kept sticking their unwashed fingers into his bullet wounds. It's horrifying. Reading the descriptions in that book the whole time, I was just like, ugh,
Mm.
so skeeved out. So when phrenologists in the early 1800s were reading people's head bumps to understand the entirety of their being, they were doing so in earnest. They weren't trying to sell anything. They
I
really
see.
thought this was a thing. The article also points out that it wasn't all head bumps these guys were looking at. They were interested in other characteristics as well, like height, weight, and skin texture. As you kind of alluded to before, obviously, these are things that thus normalize white bodies, and people
Of
outside
course.
of that standard are
Yep.
gonna.
Skin texture.
Skin texture.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. It made me think of I had twin roommates when I was in college, Monica and Michelle, and they had
They were
the
twins. Oh, I think I know this.
yeah.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
lived with two sets of twins in my life, and one pair was Monica and Michelle in college, and they had the softest skin I have ever felt in my life, just like
Both of
straight
them?
velvet, both of them. Just
Ah,
the most amazing thing. You just touch, just be like, my God, how can skin be that soft? You don't realize how
yes.
much variety there can be in skin until you meet someone like the Landon twins, or you're a phrenologist.
Where are they now?
Uh, Monica is in Japan teaching,
Okay.
and Michelle is in Colorado being a businesswoman.
Oof.
Yeah, went
Nice.
to Canada with both of them last year. Went to Montreal with them. They're delightful, and their skin is still very soft.
Excellent. Good to know.
Update, still soft
Mm.
skinned. Anyways, um, phrenologists actually reasoned out that the brain was not just one unitary organ, but made up of a limited and ascertainable number of relatively independent faculties. That's still our understanding of the brain. Basically, there are
Yeah, I
multiple
was just
parts of
kind of
it.
taking that in. That
Yeah,
feels
multiple parts of it that all do different things. So that's, they were on the right track. They were getting too small and specific with it. And the main part of why they got it wrong is that they also thought you could tell what the brain was up to from the outside of the head.
like
So,
palpating. Mm.
right, yeah. So it's like the idea that like there are zones that all do different shit. They were right about that. Just how you access and study that, they were very much wrong about. Um, and while phrenology would be, like I said, used for some awful racist, ableist, and eugenicsy bullshit, one more point this article makes in its defense is that phrenology had a liberalizing effect on other fields of medicine, in that ascribing certain deficiencies to physiognomy meant that trying to punish or suppress that trait would do no good. Instead, mental and emotional issues should be dealt with more therapeutically. And I'll come back to that. But those three things are about all the good you can say about phrenology. It wasn't a grift. It got the brain kind of right, and it promoted the idea that punishment is not how you deal with mental illness. All good
Good.
things.
Yes.
Otherwise, like you were talking about at the beginning of this. We're basically talking about the worst popular science bullshit you see on social media. And people loved phrenology. When Spurzheim came to America in 1932, he drew crowds of folks stoked on this new science that was going to solve all the world's problems and make humans better. There were, of course, disbelievers and skeptics who were like, come on, guys, you're kidding, right? Like, there's even, I love it, there's an example of a poem that someone wrote in Boston about this, where it's basically like, this is transparent bullshit. Like, you are joking, right? So there were people who were like, what the fuck? But they were by far the minority. It's kind of like Ozempic now. That's what it reminded me of reading about this. Like, people are convinced it's God's gift that's going to solve everybody's health problems and make America healthy again. And there's all these like dietitians and scientists over there like, hey, we actually have a lot of evidence this is a bad idea. But they're totally drowned out and marginalized because everyone's riding that Ozempic train.
I wonder, I find myself wondering, I mean, without looking into it, I'm as reasonably sure as I can be that every kind of step forward in medicine has detractors at the time,
Yeah,
simply because
absolutely.
people will just, gainsay anything just because of
Yeah.
they enjoy doing that.
I mean,
Again,
like I
going back
said,
to
germ theory, right? Like a thing
yes,
that we
yes,
take for
yes, yes,
absolute certain now. People were like,
yes,
fuck off. That's not
yeah,
real.
yeah.
That's part of the process.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned, vaccines just then. People will always
Mm-hmm.
argue, um, masks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just whenever consensus settles on something as a good idea, kind of authoritative consensus from be it medicine or government or fucking,
Yeah.
academia, there will always be people who are just like, nah, fuck
Nope,
off. No, I
absolutely
ain't doing
not.
that.
I
I don't
know
need to tell you
better.
what to do. Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder in phrenology's case, is it people were dissing it because they had a better idea, or
Sure.
or was it just that kind of knee jerk?
Yeah. And in fact, there was like an example in this article that was talking about one guy who was one of the most famous detractors of phrenology, and it for sure his science was not better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was like, no, this is bullshit, but the thing I think is,
Yes.
the way, and he was completely wrong as well. So it wasn't necessarily that like, oh, some people were way smarter than this, but there were people who were like, this doesn't feel like this makes sense, observably this doesn't feel like this makes sense.
See, I'm reminded of my kind of on again, off again love affair with trepidation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because on paper, that it just seems so reasonable that that would
Sure.
work,
Right. I mean,
you
that's
know?
the thing, right? Like you're just trying to like reason out
Yeah.
how things work,
Babies learn things quickly. They have a hole in their head.
Right.
What if we
It's like
always had a hole in our head?
it's also like paleo logic, right? Like people who eat paleo
Yeah, yeah,
diets,
yeah.
right? Like, well,
Yes.
our
Yes.
caveman ancestors did this, so that must be the best possible way to
Yeah.
live life. Like, yeah, they also died when they were like 24. But sure, yeah, I'm sure they were skinny when they died, so they
Mhm.
probably had shit figured out. Um, there's a lot of like that's why common sense and science are not the same thing. And I think that that's
That is a fantastic point you've made there, Corrigan.
that's a lot of times when it comes to people who argue with the science on whatever the case may be. I think climate change is a good example of that. They think their common sense
Yes.
overrides what the science says. Well, they say this, but I can see with my eyes and reason
Yeah.
that. And they think that that is just as equivalent as what scientists are doing, but it's not. In this case,
Vituperative.
vituperative. People
That's
are
the word.
very vituperative. Yeah,
Just seeing 20 minutes later, and I can still remember it. That's good.
I'm impressed. I don't know if I would have
Thank
pulled it
you.
out then. So excellent work. So yeah, people loved it. And like I said, it's, equivalent to things, supplements, Ozempic, things like that now that there's plenty of evidence against, but they're the marginalized voices. Well, people are just like, nope, this is it. This has solved it. And you can understand why people want something that, like, this seems like it's going to solve everything. Great. Tell me there's one thing and we can know how to
Yep.
fix people and how to fix society and all that. Fucking sign me up, right? That's what phrenology was doing. As a side note, weirdly, Spurzheim died in Boston while on his little American skull bump tour after contracting typhoid. They removed his brain, skull, and heart during the autopsy, and they displayed them preserved in alcohol to the public. In his short time on these American soils, he made such an impression, Bostonians had an elaborate funeral for him and built a monument to him in the famous rich people cemetery, Mount Auburn. You can still go see it to this day, and you can see pictures of it on the Mount Auburn website, which says of it, quote, "The elegant monument was copied from the Roman altar tomb of Cornelius Scipio Barbatus. Low and rectangular, the simple sarcophagus referenced classical and Egyptian designs and was free of excessive ornament." Oh, big time stuff there.
So how did he develop? Why was there such love for him among Bostonians then? What good did his, air quotes, teachings lead to?
Well, so this is like the beginning of this, right? Like, this is a guy just he's bringing the new good news. This is a tent revival, basically. He is in
Okay, okay.
Boston for 2.5 months, riding this circuit, talking about what phrenology does and can tell us and how it can help us to improve ourselves and things like this. So people are riled up with excitement about this. They have just heard about Jesus for the first time, basically,
Okay.
So they have been brought the good news of phrenology to Boston. And once he died, like I said, they did the monument and then went on to found the Boston Phrenological Society. So he was there for 2.5 months before dying and was so influential he got a monument and a medical society in his honor and became arguably the most influential physician of the 19th century, which
I'd
is
love to think
pretty
that they're still
bonkers.
going.
They're
The
not.
BPS, just like two guys.
Yeah, right. There are probably those two guys, but they're on TikTok now.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
By the end of the 1830s, just a few years after Spurzheim's death, phrenology was the accepted science, and figures like Henry Ward Beecher, Horace Mann, and Walt Whitman were all amongst its enthusiastic acolytes.
Did you say 1930s?
1830s.
18. Okay.
Yes. People were using it basically like star charts, like, come read my kid's head so we can find out what kind of life they're gonna have.
Palmistry and
Yeah, exactly.
mm,
And the basic idea here was that, as the Atlantic put it, quote, "the shape of the brain matched the shape of the skull that encased it. So studying the bumps and indentations of the skull could reveal the function and character of the brain beneath." Again, this isn't like a totally crazy idea, right? Like, they're right about the fact that the brain has different parts that do different things. Um, and we don't totally know exactly what's going on in there, but we know it's covered in bumps.
sure.
And heads are kind of covered in various ridges and bumps. So, like, theoretically, this
You
is,
mentioned
again,
something.
common sense.
So
It makes sense.
was phrenology also publicized and sold as not just a diagnostic tool, but also a divination tool? You could predict how things were going to unfold for someone,
Yeah,
like
especially later
palmistry.
on, which I will kind of get to, where it kind of spins out into the more griftery territory. But yes, it was definitely something that you could early on examine a kid's skull and then sort of take steps from there.
Yes. This
Um,
one feels musically inclined. Let's give him a piano.
Right.
Yeah.
And even when we're talking about mental illness and things like that. So the idea was, like, once you know this, you could strengthen the parts of the brains that have positive associations but are weaker in a person. So if I, am in some way like intellectually disabled or something, and they find the part of my brain that causes this, then you can essentially exercise that point of the brain through various practices,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then that might fix me, right?
Yep.
That's kind of the promise of phrenology is not
early
only,
indicators,
yes,
yes.
early indicators, exactly, and then offering you some sort of solution to how you can strengthen those parts that they have found are weak in you. And
It's
this is why,
enticing. I can see why it
yeah,
took off. Very enticing.
right? It all sounds really good. And again, against a backdrop of we don't have medical science yet. So, you know, this is what we've got. And this is why, like I said before, it changed the way people approach mental illness. So now, if your kid is suffering from a disability or emotional problems, you try to exercise the brain instead of, say, beating the shit out of them, for
Yeah.
example. Um, Obviously, we know now this doesn't really work. There are ways you can train your brain to do some cool stuff and like remember things and stuff like that. But there's like no amount of crosswords in the world that you can do that will train you not to have autism, right?
Of course.
Like that's not how this works. But you know, if you were autistic at that time, this is certainly a better hypothesis than the ones that were just going to leave you chained to your bed in an asylum. Like it's a slightly better way of doing things. But once phrenology's early progenitors died off, so did phrenological research. It soon became clear that the people who were still espousing it were simply going off the philosophies of the guys before them and not doing any rigorous studies into its validity or anything
Mm.
further with it. And ish started to get weird. For example, J.S. Grimes became the face of phrenology, evolving it into what he called etherology, the phreno philosophy of mesmerism and magic eloquence.
Ah, look, come
Yeah.
on.
It was obviously such transparent
Say that again.
bullshit.
Say that again. What a great fucking phrase.
The phreno philosophy of mesmerism and magic eloquence.
Oh,
Yeah.
listen, if this podcast is about one thing, it's that,
That's it. That's the
isn't it?
tagline. 100%.
Wonderful. Wonderful,
Uh,
wonderful, wonderful turn of
yeah.
phrase.
It was just obviously so not real that it called into question everything else about phrenology.
Mm.
And like I said, medicine was more art and often grift than science at this time. So there wasn't necessarily credentials people had to have to practice. That's why
They
you
went too
hear
far.
about,
They went
yeah,
too far.
right. That's why you hear about barbers doing dentistry and shit like that.
Mm.
So eventually the practical phrenologist began to become popular. People without any form of medical training at all who basically practiced a form of skull-based fortune telling for a nice fee. So what had started as sincere became clear snake oil. And by that time, it had already become a weird hierarchical system meant to create moral and social perfection in society, thanks largely to the brothers Lorenzo Niles Fowler and Orson Squire Fowler, which are some wild names. But they'd
And
figured out, yeah,
and just like so many other times, you have to ask, or I at least, I ponder the question: did they believe it
right,
or
yeah.
not?
I think
You
there's an
know?
argument to be made that these guys didn't. I think they were very business savvy and figured out, you know, we can open a practice. They opened a practice in New York and made absolute bundles, basically just having people come in, get their heads read, tell them what they want to hear, what exercises they need to
Nothing
do.
more sinister than that.
Yeah,
Nothing more sinister than that. Everybody
absolutely.
walking into that office had problems, had real fucking
Right.
issues that they needed addressing. And they were just sent out into the fucking streets,
Yep.
heads full of bullshit
And
for
on
a
top of that, they were like
fee.
selling like gear as well. So probably these
Okay.
people then spent money on things that were
Mm.
supposed to help them as well,
Nothing
like
more sinister than that. I fucking hate
multifaceted.
it.
Exactly, just taking advantage of people. Obviously, a lot of those people would have been like rich assholes anyway, but certainly there's a degree of, regular people just trying to get healthy or sort things out, sort out their mental health and stuff like that, that the Fowler brothers would have taken advantage of. So while everything was basically alternative medicine back in the day, this is one of the earliest forms of institutionalized alternative medicine. Following the Fowlers was like following your favorite holistic health influencer now and buying
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
their supplements. Same exact thing.
Yeah.
Phrenology remained popular with its sort of self-help emphasis for several decades, but the American Phrenological Journal ceased publication in 1911, which is about where you can say the whole thing fell off. Unfortunately, the eugenics ideas of being able to obtain a perfect and moral society did not fall off, and the shit they started doing to the brains and bodies of non-conforming people was literally the stuff of horror movies. There are plenty of horror movies about what they did, Shutter Island being among the most famous of those.
Yes.
So with all that said, I'm going to wrap up by taking you to 19th century Lisbon, Portugal, peak phrenology era, where a man named Jogo Alves had embarked upon a life of crime after realizing that he'd been wasting his life working as a servant in the homes of rich people. Which is, hey, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know why more servants in the olden
Yeah.
days didn't fuck it off and just start
Turn
stealing.
to crime.
Right, yeah. But Jogo didn't stop there. In 1836, he began working in a home located on the Aqueduto das Águas Livres, or the Aqueduct of the Free Waters. And this is basically a half-mile-ish long waterway with a 213-foot high bridge over it that let people who lived outside of Lisbon come and go from the city. So these were not necessarily rich assholes. It was people coming from farms or people who were in the 1800s equivalent of the burbs, regular folks. The rural farming people in particular would come into the town to sell their harvest and then head back home via the aqueduct at nightfall. And that's when filthy, thieving Jogo Alves would spring from where he'd been lying in wait and rob them of their day's earnings. Now, it's the 1830s. There are no security cameras. It'd be pretty easy to hide your identity if you robbed someone in the dark of night. It likely wouldn't be hugely difficult to avoid getting caught if you were willing to take a few days off from stealing every now and again. Jogo was not. And as such, rather than just let his victims scamper off back home parted from their hard-earned money, this motherfucker would toss them off that 213-foot wall to their deaths below. It's estimated that between 1836 and 1839, he yeeted some 70 people to their deaths from the aqueduct.
No.
70 people. This guy was a champion douchebag.
Yep.
Real jerkface. And the thing was, at first, authorities thought that these were just copycat suicides. One person threw themselves from the walkway, and every other depressed person in Lisbon followed suit.
Like the Bridge of Dogs in Scotland.
Exactly. Precisely that. So they responded by closing the bridge, which is a reasonable thing to do. Whatever's happening, just shut that down. However, with the bridge closure came a rise in home break-ins, because good old Jogo wasn't content to go back to work. He instead formed a criminal gang of murderous dudes, happy to bust into wealthy residents' homes and wreak havoc. Their spree came to an end when 4 of them, including Jogo, were caught in the act of murdering 4 people. Perhaps just because of how bonkers his crimes are, Jogo Alves is often cited as Portugal's first serial killer and the last person executed in the country, neither of which are true. A woman
Scotched.
Yeah, let's scotch that right now. A woman named Luisa de Jesus, who poisoned 28 children in the mid-1700s, was the first serial killer. And about a half dozen people were executed between his hanging in 1841 and the official abolition of the death penalty in Portugal in 1867.
What I'm loving here is I cannot see the link.
You can't see between what I told you before and this?
Yeah. I know this is going to coalesce into
that it's going to come back
around.
around.
I know this is going to come together, but I cannot see where, and I love it.
Well, we're getting there. In fact, in my next sentence. Regardless, Jogo was a public curiosity. And with phrenology taking hold throughout Europe, he presented an interesting opportunity.
Yes.
The chance to examine the skull of someone evil as shit.
Yep.
So they took the head off his corpse and preserved it in a glass jar where ostensibly they conducted research on it. The thing is, there's no actual record of that. If anyone ever did get around to studying Jogo and finding out what made him tick, that research has been fully lost to time. Part of me wonders if someone looked him over, realized he had a perfectly normal head, and was like, we must never speak of this again. But that's just my conjecture. There's nothing to back that up. All I know is we have no idea what phrenologists thought of Jogo's head. We can all give our own thoughts and feelings on it, though, because Marko,
Yes.
you can see that head
Ah,
freely
that was
on
literally
the
my next
internet.
question. Where now is the head of Jogo?
It's horrifying. Marko, this guy is perfectly preserved, staring straight into your soul. He just
Oh,
looks like a guy underwater. And I'm going to send you that photo right now.
oh, I'm poised. You know it's going to be fire when CoRri is sending me pictures on Signal for an intro.
Oh
Where is?
boy.
Oh, I've
I
seen that.
know.
I've seen that.
Have you seen that?
Yes. Or am I thinking of the fucking No Surprises video? Karma Police? Which one is it?
I cannot answer that for you. But I mean,
It's yeah.
it's
I
just a
he
guy.
look wow, yeah.
Isn't that bananas? Do you want to describe what you're seeing here?
Just exactly as you have just described. It's Tom York in the
It is,
video
yeah.
for Radiohead's No Surprises.
Yeah, you are looking at exactly what this guy looked like as a living human nearly 200 years ago. And honestly, I kind of wish we did this more. We're always relying on sketches and whatnot to determine what people looked like back in the day. But what if we just
Yeah.
straight up had George Washington's head in a jar?
Wow.
Deeply missed opportunity there. I love the description from Atlas Obscura, by the way, which says of Jogo's head, quote, "It's yellow, peaceful looking, and somewhat akin to a potato."
It's it's the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes, the
They
still
are
very
almost
alive eyes.
almost withering, almost kind of belittling you, looking at you as though
Mm-hmm.
you've just said something stupid.
Yeah, he
Or
looks like an asshole, doesn't he?
he does, he really does. He really
Like
does.
that's our phrenology take. Weirdly, you can tell by this guy's face that he's a total douchebag.
Yeah.
um
So well preserved. What have they put him in? What is he in there? What is
I'm
that?
not entirely sure what he is preserved in. But he's not the only one. He's in the anatomical theater at the University of Lisbon's Faculty of Medicine, down the hall from a similarly preserved head of another murderer named Franciscos Matos Lobo, who had killed I think it's his own family of four and thrown their dog out the window, which is
Oh,
pretty
why is
evil.
that? Why is that detail funny?
It's just like why? Like, okay, you just
Why?
murdered a bunch of people and then you were like, and
Why is
fuck
that
you in
detail?
particular.
Yeet. Yeah.
Right? Um, we do know that studies were done on Franciscos. But unfortunately, people are far more interested in Jogos, so I don't know what those findings were, nor what he looks like, because I didn't see any pictures of him. But at least, my dear
You
Marko,
can't do much science through a jar, can you?
no, I think
Not without
you'd
like
have to take it
lasers and
out.
things.
Yeah, right. With modern technology, probably, but
Mm,
not with 1830s technology, I don't think. But yeah, we, as a relic of the phrenological era, will always have the yellow, peaceful looking potato head of Jogo Albus.
thank you.
You're very welcome.
Very nice. Yeah. Genuinely always had in much the same way as I was, enamored with the idea of drilling a hole in my head. Phrenology fascinated me as well. So it's lovely to have a bit of context, lovely to have a bit more knowledge. Thank
Mm.
you.
You've got a good head for it, I think. Like they would
Is
be
that
like, this is a good white man right here.
Oh, okay. I thought that was maybe a pun. I don't know, but I do have a lumpy head. I do have
Do you
a
have a
kind of
lumpy
a
head? It doesn't look lumpy.
yeah. No,
Mm.
I've got a very interesting head. The topography of my skull, I think, would
Probably why
lend
you're
itself
always
to
rubbing in.
all manner of interpretations.
We gotta find the two guys on TikTok who do
We
phrenology
do.
and have them fill you up.
So, all right. How's this for an angle?
Mm.
Is there, I wonder, money to be made? Uh, money to be drawn, as it
Okay.
were, in think maybe like a wedding entertainer or think,
Uh-huh.
you know, somebody who you'd pay to come to your gig,
Sure.
uh, who has properly studied these old fucking cranky types of medicine and divination and prestidigitation and will do them for you in 2024. I'd
Ooh.
you know because
Yep.
you can book a palm reader to come to your wedding
Oh,
or a
yeah,
fucking silhouette
absolutely.
artist. What about can I book a phrenologist in 2024 to come and use the old learning Use the old
Let's look that up
science.
for the meetup, see if we can get a phrenologist in.
Oh yeah, come into your
If it's going to
garden.
be anywhere, it's going to be New York City.
You well, yeah. But then again, um, I'm profoundly uncomfortable with people touching my head. Profoundly uncomfortable.
That would
Um,
that would be a problem.
fuck knows how, because I certainly didn't enter it. But my name was drawn at a raffle some years back at work, and I air quotes won a 20-minute Indian head massage. It
Oh,
was
that's my
fucking
dream.
horrible, man.
Oh, and they
Ugh.
do the thing where they take the air and blow it over your head, and oh
Oh, it
man,
was fucking.
the
I've
number of
never
times
been
I've
so
watched that
tense.
one Baba video on YouTube of the guy doing the Indian head massage is through the roof. It's like my favorite. Whenever I get a massage, I'm always disappointed if they don't do the scalp.
Nah, I just petrified. I became as wood. I just fucking froze up until the fucking weirdo stopped. Go away.
Okay, well, note to self: do not try to perform any form of phrenology on you.
Look, if it's consensual, if I know what I'm getting into, go for your life. But if I'm going to get, a little reading at the end, ha ha ha, yeah, I'm down with that. But
Okay,
don't
yeah.
don't be rubbing my scalp while I'm trying to work, mate. Hey, Joag is in session, friends. Come on in, won't you? Close the door against the wind, pull up a chair, maybe unbutton your overcoat, hang it up in the corner next to the fire,
Ooh.
pull down a tankard, maybe.
It is August, Mark.
No, 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 not here. It
Oh,
isn't.
not here in Joag. Okay, all right.
Not in
Let's
my
do it. Let's
Joag
get into this.
palace. It isn't. The winds are
Mm,
harsh. The snow is fierce.
nice.
The ale is frothing and nut brown.
Mm.
There's fresh pork crackling on the spit. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Grab yourself a bag.
A bag.
Come and sit down. Bag of crackling.
Okay.
Grab yourself a bag of crackling, friends,
Mm.
because it's Joag time with your hosts, friends, leaders, Mark and Corrigan. Let
Yeah.
us run our calloused fingers across your bumpy skulls and tell you some bullshit about what it means. And
I
then
love
pay
it.
us.
Importantly.
We're bringing back the old ways. That's what we're doing.
Money, please. Yeah, all of that. Welcome. And listen, I know that a lot of people are trying to escape into autumn months in advance because of the torment of the weather outside for most of the planet at this moment, or at least the hemisphere in which it is summer.
Uh,
So happy to be a part
Greece
of that.
is aflame again, just like it was last year. The
Fun. Love
uh,
that. Great.
like people dying, homes
Yep.
and livelihoods ruined, farmland and fucking cars
Mm,
exploding,
yep.
which
As I
is
talked about a few weeks ago, same in California and various
yes,
parts of North America.
yes,
And it's hot where you are too.
yeah. I mean, I feel a little bit kind of ashamed to complain about our heat to you because you live in a
Well,
country that literally has a place called Death Valley.
I do. And I think our weather is pretty similar, like temperature wise, this week. And this is actually kind of like a nice temperate-ish week for us.
Oh,
But I have experienced this weather in August in England myself, and it is much worse when you can't escape it than
yes,
here, where we
yes,
all have air conditioning and every place we go has air conditioning, and
yeah,
you only have to be outside if you work out there or you're trying to exercise in it. So
yeah.
it's easy to avoid here. It is not in England.
Yes, so I'm covered in bumps. I'm covered in itchy bumps. Laura, the way Laura puts it, I'm a mosquito magnet because I'm juicy. She thinks that I must be juicy for the mosquitoes.
Gross. I hate it.
I got a bite the other day right there on the
Oh, not
tip
in
of
the
my
ear.
earlobe.
Man,
It's nice.
that's an
I think it's
annoying spot.
real fun. But hey, let's talk about home remedies that work.
Hey.
In a heady mix of curiosity and desperation earlier this week, I tried the hot spoon trick, and it works. It fucking
Yeah.
works.
Beautiful.
Um, Listener, maybe it'll work for you if you've got a bump, if you've got a bite, if an animal is, an insect, not like a dog, but like if an insect has been has been drinking of you, Hold a fucking
Uh,
spoon in near boiling water for a few moments and just press it on your skin for as long as you can take on the bump,
yeah,
ideally.
I don't know if that's
And
worth it.
it'll stop itching. And it works. It fucking works.
I think, the thing about like things being worse in England versus here when it's the same exact phenomenon. I think here we're so used to getting bit by bugs that like that's too much work. Also we
Mhm.
all have like Benadryl sticks and things like that, calamine lotion, things like that, like in our cupboards because we get bit all the time. This
Yeah.
is a new problem for you
Yeah.
Brits now that it's hot enough for you to have mosquitoes all the time.
Benadryl sticks. Tell me about the Benadryl sticks.
Oh, it's great. It's like literally just like a stick, looks like a Tide stick, that you like. Do you have Tide sticks?
No, but I like a roll-on deodorant, maybe?
No, no, no. It's like the size of this here lip gloss or
Yeah.
lipstick that I'm holding up for you here.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just got like a, medicated point, kind of like a felt pen, I guess, like a
Ah,
marker,
nice. And that
you
contains
know?
antihistamine.
Yeah, and you just spread it onto whatever you have, and it makes you not so itchy.
Nice.
You should see if you have
Feels like
something like
something.
that.
Yeah, I intend to. I absolutely will. Right after we're done.
Yeah, it's, it comes in clutch. But yeah, as such, I think most of us just have that stuff around us. We're not, going and heating up spoons
I'm
and sticking
look,
them on ourselves.
I feel like I say this at the same time every year. I'm simply not built for it. I am
Yeah.
not a man for summer. I'm not a man for heat. I'm just not. I'm a man of
Yeah.
cool evenings and, interesting jackets.
Yeah. If I can be in a pool, then fine.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, I don't really want to be hot. But I'm Mark, I'm getting a dog.
Ah, I knew you would. I know this, but I knew you would. I knew it was only a matter of time when you sent me the picture. It's adorable, by the way. Is it a he?
It's a he, yes.
He's gorgeous.
He will keep me outside in extreme cold and heat. His name currently is Avocado. He is part dachshund, part some form of terrier or something like that. So he's a little stubby and very scrappy in the
Uh-huh.
face. But Kristen texted after I sent a picture and was like, "I'm so in love with Walter," which is what I've named him. Uh, and then Brienne reminded us that you're familiar, of course, with the actor Walton Goggins.
Of course.
And for years, Kristen, who has a habit of reading actors' names wrong,
Ah,
thought his name was Walter Groggins.
okay. All right.
And so our
A
new
tribute
dog
act.
will be named Walter Groggins.
Beautiful. It's very fitting, and I love that he has a surname. I would expect nothing less.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, come on. Let's
Mhm.
be real. You have to have a last
Yes.
name. So very excited about this.
When do
It's
you pick
been
him
like
up?
he comes, so he was found as a stray with
Uh,
like nine other dogs from
oh,
his like litter in Alabama. And they were able to scoop up like five of them, but four or five others of that litter were just too fast. And they're still on the street and they're trying to figure out how they can like capture them because they just like can't, they're too wily to get these other
what?
ones.
And they were abandoned together as a nine.
Yeah, just like all of them. Like somebody's dog
Fuck
had,
does that?
I know, it's like so sociopathic. Like take them to a shelter. Don't leave them on the street. It's insane. It's like people are so afraid of like getting a slap on the wrist for like, you should have neutered your dog or whatever, like that they will just abandon dogs in the street.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, he was found on the street.
But that has led him to you.
That has led him to me. So we got a little street dog coming. He just got neutered yesterday. He got his rabies shot. He's like
You've
all
met him, have
vaxxed
you?
up.
You've been and
I
met him
haven't
and
met
said
him.
hi.
He's in Alabama. He's
Ah, you're
far
not
away.
going to Alabama to get
I'm not going
him.
to Alabama. He will be in a transport. They have like a connection with a local shelter, and
Ah,
they send
like a
their
dog
dogs up
network.
here. Yeah, a little dog network. So they send them to, I guess, I don't know, I guess people up here want more stray dogs than people in Alabama do or something. I'm not sure, but they have this connection. So in 2 weeks, he'll be on a transport up here and we will go pick him up. And I have bought him so many toys and
Oh yeah.
things, and I'm just very excited.
All fresh stuff. You've not given him any of Gaucho's old stuff.
He might wear like a jacket or something like that of Gaucho's,
I think
but
that's nice. Gaucho, peace be
yeah.
upon him.
Yeah, it was just listen, like we were planning on waiting a lot longer to get a pet, be like, hey, it'll be easier to travel and stuff like that if we don't have a dog we're looking after. But it was just like to the point where like especially Keo was just so heartbroken that I was like, I think we need another animal. I think like it's too painful to like the reminder of not having an animal is like a
Yeah.
constant reminder that we don't have Gaucho anymore. So it's
Uh,
like I think we need to fill the void a little bit. You know, there will never be another Gaucho, but we
of
are very
course not.
excited for Walter Groggins.
Gaucho, if you're out there, buddy, 1 in a million. Never seen a
One in a
fucking beast
million.
like you.
Here, here, the absolute best dog. But also in things for people to know that are upcoming besides the dog that will be living in my house very soon. We have a book club this
What?
weekend, this
Sorry,
Saturday.
back to Walter.
Oh yeah.
What do you know of his temperament?
Oh,
What notes have they given you on him?
yeah, he's apparently an absolute delight. He likes to cuddle. He doesn't
Okay.
bark. He which was like Gaucho. Gaucho is not a barker either. Just basically like if there's like something that like to bark at, sure, but he doesn't like he's not yippy.
Okay.
Yeah, he likes to cuddle. He's playful. He is high energy.
Good.
Yeah, just seems like a nice guy. She's like very
Good.
taken with him. So
I look forward to meeting him,
yeah, you're
literally
gonna get
meeting him.
some good dog cuddles in a month and a half at our Joag meetup. That if you're considering going to our Joag Rankers with the brand new Hell Rankers podcast meetup, make sure that you just let me know, join our Discord, give me your email address so I can send you
You
the
definitely
info
should.
packet.
If you're on the fence, I think you should definitely decide to come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at this point, we've even got one traveler from England coming. That's how big
Yeah,
a deal this is.
huge
So,
pan-global event.
yeah, you definitely want to come to the Joe Ag Rankers meetup and hang out with all of us.
Yeah, listen,
So,
just to talk business super quick. I guess we'll like you and I and Steve and Anna talk this through beforehand so we know what the fuck we're doing.
yes,
Okay, good.
we will indeed. And it's going to be
Okay,
a grand old time. I will remind me after this and I will
good.
update you on more things. But
Just don't
yes,
want to, be a
just show
dick.
up like,
Okay.
what are we
Yeah,
doing
what's
here?
this now? Yeah.
You'd be fine with
Uh,
it, realistically.
oh yeah, I'm
But
sure.
book club on Saturday, we are reading Maeve Fly. And
I'm
we'll
seeing a lot of people talking about this book.
yeah, this one when I put it up in on the book club calendar, a lot of people messaged me and were like, "Oh man, I
Having a
love
little
this
moment,
one.
this
This is
book.
huge."
Ah,
So, very excited about this one. I have to go pick it up from the library. It's a short read. It's 288 pages, so very easy to get to. Even if you have not started it yet, get to Maeve Fly and come hang out with us on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and you'll have to figure out the time zone yourself anywhere else. As per usual. That's also, I mean, we gotta figure out, we've got one more. Did we already figure out when we were gonna do one last
New York
watch
watch along.
along? Yeah,
We
before
could
going. I
do
guess the
it.
31st, perhaps.
Uh, yeah, that's the day after I get back from Halls.
You'll
Is
be
that right?
nursing your eye. What
I'll
better do
maybe
you
have
want to
another
do
eye
than just
patch, unless
yeah,
I decide, to fucking,
let's
you
just cut
know,
it out.
take matters into my own hands.
Right. Yeah. So maybe last day of this month, we will
I think
do a
I
little
talked about
watch
a guy
along.
who did an appendectomy on himself on here, didn't I?
Ooh,
Once at some point.
it's quite possible. It seems like the kind of thing I just try to forget so I don't
I
think
mean,
about it again.
a mechanic would fix his own car.
Yeah. I don't think that's the
So
same
you
thing.
agree?
Having a body is not the same thing as being a doctor, though.
Hmm. I think there's, I don't know. I think I really, and this isn't a bit, I really believe that we could be more proactive in performing surgery on ourselves. I
I
just think
mean,
that's the thing we should be doing more of.
I'm going to have to politely disagree.
think my
especially because
father-in-law
there's
pulled
like,
out one of his own teeth once, but he's terrified of going to the dentist. He's like a
yeah, I
grown-ass
think that's a
man.
common one, the pulling out your own teeth.
Why are people so afraid of the dentist?
I hate the dentist. Mostly
Okay.
though, I think this is like it's a sensory thing. It's not so much that I'm scared of the dentist
Yeah, yeah.
as um like my jaw doesn't open very wide
Yes.
and
I know
holding my
this.
mouth
You've told
open
me.
is
Yep.
deeply painful. Uh and so I tend to panic at the dentist. I don't know, maybe a lot of people do that too. Maybe there's a lot of people who have panic around that. But they are like, poking you with stuff and making you bleed and all of that kind of thing. So
I get Joker syndrome at the dentist. I get giggly.
even without the gas, you just are giggly.
Yeah, when it starts to, when it's super sensitive and the drill is going and there's that grinding.
You
I
would
get
make a good like villain in something. It's like, oh, someone's about to do me a pain, and you just start laughing.
well. Um Joker 2 coming up, cinema's back on the menu, boys.
There it is. So that's happening as well. But before that is book club this Saturday, and before that is us doing our new snack series, which you have given a name.
Yes. Snack to the future.
Snack to the future.
Works of fiction, works of speculative fiction, futuristic fiction, sci-fi. What has it got right? What did it fuck up? What did it get wrong? And I've already got kind of plenty of ideas as to what kind of movies we can put in here. Loads of
Yes.
post kind of apocalyptic dystopian stuff we can fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
But Running Man is a great place to start, not only because we've both seen it quite recently, but I vividly recall talking to you about how much it just got right. It was a very
Yeah,
prescient film.
it
Never read
very
the
much
book. I've
is.
never read the
Yeah, me neither.
Bachman book.
No. Apparently, I mean, it's different enough that King had the Bachman name put on the movie because he didn't really want it to be
I
a
see.
Stephen King movie. But I'm not entirely sure what those differences are. I did come across an article about it, but I hadn't actually hunkered down and read it. But yeah, we're going to talk about The Running Man this Friday, and it'll be up on our Ko-Fi after we speak about that with one another, and it should be a very fun time. So if you're not on there already, go ahead
Yeah.
and subscribe. Also, this past week, I forgot to make the video for Kristen and I's podcast on our Ko-Fi unlisted. So that's public for
Oh, I
you
see.
too. If you want to see this month's Joag fan cave, you got a freebie this time to hear us talk about
A lot of people are
Kristen's
saying they enjoy it.
experience
A lot of people are
watching
saying a lot of good things about
it.
that.
Yes, I've gotten
Got to tell you.
very good feedback on this episode. Listen, I bless Kristen for doing this kind of thing because as miserable as it is for her, she is very funny to watch when she talks about
She is
this stuff.
excellent value, is Laggy.
Yes, she is
Excellent value.
so much fun.
Um,
So go check that out on our YouTube as well. And then, hey, subscribe if you like it. And you can see her torment every month.
I have so many good things to say about Jesse the Body Ventura. So it's going to be just so good to talk about Running Man because I get to talk
Great.
about Jesse the Body. Have you seen him doing the media rounds lately?
I have, yes, indeed.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
yes,
a
yes.
very problematic politician, but at least right now he's, doing the pro LGBTQ stuff
Exactly
and
this.
shutting down all the conservative nonsense. So I will give him props for
He's
that.
very much the Nega Hulk, isn't he? Nega Hulk Hogan
Yeah,
of
exactly.
the
At least that's how
moment.
he's fashioned himself at this point, is
Yep.
the opposite viewpoint of that guy.
Listen, you were on a pro wrestling podcast last week, is that correct?
Almost.
Oh, what happened? Hey,
Uh,
what happened?
what happened? I was delighted to be on the Monday Night Fake Fights
How did
podcast
you end up
last
on a
week
fucking pro wrestling podcast?
because I talk to
BTW.
people on
Oh yeah.
social media and I'm
Okay.
a treasure. I've made friends with folks on Wrestle Sky on Blue Sky, where everybody talks about the graps.
Mm.
And in fact, I unintentionally came up with the tagline for this podcast, which is, goofs and graps, because I had one day said to Garrick, who is the host, after people were being like assholes about
Garrick,
something
I
like
recognize that name from Blue
from
Sky.
Star Trek.
Oh yeah, of course. But no, I'm pretty sure
Oh,
I
from the Blue
recognized him from
Sky.
Blue Sky as well. Yeah.
Her, yeah. But
Her, okay.
yeah, she's all over Wrestle Sky and all that kind of stuff. Um, And I had said one day, like, hey, I'm just here for the goofs and the graps. And she took that on as like a mantra. um,
Well, well, well.
and so, yeah, she invited me to be on the podcast in which we watched an episode of Nitro and an episode of Raw from 1995, December 4th, 1995, and then talked about those two things. Unfortunately, at the end of it, we realized the recording had failed. So that was a bummer, and we'll have to redo it. But let me tell you, Mark, I had never seen either of those things before. Never seen a Raw, never seen a Nitro, and it was an experience. I watched Nitro first, and I was like, "This is so much fun! I'm having a great time. I love this. Like, this is what I love
Who
about
was some of the cast of Nitro
wrestling."
at the time? Was Tony involved? Tony Schiavone, was he on
I think he comes
commentary?
in like a month from where I started on this, so he's
Okay, okay,
not
okay.
there yet. I
Bobby
didn't know who
Heenan, was
any
he
of
in the
yeah,
cast?
Bobby
Yeah,
Heenan was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there. I have notes on it elsewhere. You know how bad my memory is with things that I just watched.
Yeah.
um, but it was great. Like the first match had these guys called the American Males. And their theme song was literally just like American males, American males, American males. And I was like, fuck, this is so good. Had a blast with it. And then Raw was one of the worst things I've ever subjected myself to in my life. That
Yes,
was a show executive produced by cocaine. It was
completely.
deeply
The
bad.
the reason I ask is because how far how far back have you gone in terms of pro wrestling? Have you watched any like
Zero.
vintage WWF?
No, absolutely not.
Because um Jesse the Body was a big part of kayfabe for me growing
No.
up. He was on commentary with Vince McMahon at the time.
Right.
That I got into WWF at the time. It was the days of Saturday Night's Main Event, and Superstars, and his commentary work with Vince McMahon was fucking brilliant. And you bought it, man. You bought that there was this fucking animosity between the two of them, and their styles were so different. And he was so good at selling what was going on in the ring and making it
Right.
seem, just kayfabe, exactly kayfabe, carny as fuck.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and yeah, I completely get how he's a dinosaur.
yeah. Right.
But I have unending affection towards Jesse
Yeah.
Ventura. The guy is one in a million.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see with obviously even without watching any of that stuff, I know who Jesse Ventura is, and
Mm,
it was interesting to watch these episodes and be like, "Oh, I know who these people are because wrestling was such a huge thing in the 80s and 90s that they were
yeah,
ubiquitous to popular culture." So without
sure.
ever having seen any of the stuff that they were actually on,
You know
I
them.
know who they are. And one of the
Yeah.
craziest things was Randy Savage being on one of them. And because I only knew him from like Slim Jim commercials and stuff like that, I'd never seen him without like his decorations on,
Mm.
sunglasses and tassels and all that kind of stuff. And so when he goes to fight, he takes off the hat and the glasses and his shirt and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's a different guy. I don't know who that is. It's like I would, if he was walking down the street, I would not be like, that's Randy
Randy.
Savage. It was
Randy
very
is,
weird.
people often say that Hendrix didn't die. He went back to his home world. And, so did
Yeah,
Savage, man. He's
100%.
out, he's fucking out there somewhere.
Yeah, but it
Um,
was very interesting. There was some favorites that I had on there. The Colonel something or other who proposed to another character during a match. So like there was like a whole match going on, and then on the
all
side there
right.
was like a
What was this,
proposal.
Nitro or Raw?
Nitro.
Okay.
Colonel Parker, I think his name was. And
All
he
right.
looks like Colonel Sanders. And like mid-match, I think her name was something Sherry,
Sensational Sherry.
something like that. It was definitely like
Yeah, she
a
did a stint in WWE as well.
yeah,
Sherry
yeah.
Martel.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
And she yeah, he proposes to her during the match. So during the match, there's like an actual match going on, but there's also a storyline going on
Yeah, yeah.
outside of the
Awesome.
ring. I was just
Awesome.
having so much fun. It was
Yeah.
it was a blast. I'd watch more of those. Raw, I never want to see again, but Nitro was so fun. I
And
enjoyed that.
there's a load of really positive word of mouth around WWE at the minute, right? Since
Hmm.
that old bastard Vince has finally, gotten back into his fucking coffin with, sacred earth from his homeland. Um, Everyone's like, oh, it's cooking. The fucking storylines are
Mhm.
great. No, 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 no. And then I sit down and watch it, and it's just the same old shit. It's just fucking awful. Uh, just piss, just weak ass, diluted, awful fucking spasmodic camera work, just fucking
Mhm.
lights and colors and catchphrases and no substance at all. And don't you fucking dare come at me and tell me that even the best pro wrestling doesn't have substance and is frivolous, because it isn't. At its best, it's all art. It's all art combined. So fuck off.
Yeah.
Um, but
I
WWE is
like
none of
watching
that.
these. It's like very much one of those things where I can see the difference. And I've said before that I tried to get into WWE years ago and it just didn't grab me. Whereas AEW was like from the first thing you ever showed me, I was like, yep, in. And that was
Yeah.
what it felt like watching these, where I was like, if you showed me Nitro as the first thing that I'd ever seen, I would have been like, yes, give me
Yeah.
more. If you'd showed me Raw as the first thing that I ever saw, I would have been like, no, thank you, not for me.
Yes.
I don't like it. And all that stuff you described is very much present in there. It's like just so frenetic in its editing and the style of it all, the cuts, the lighting, the camera angles. It's like, what is happening here? This is
Yes.
incoherent.
Yet, on the other hand, the fucking money that it makes,
Yeah, right.
it's
I
obviously
mean, the
working.
crowd was having a great time
Yeah.
there. Like that was we remarked about on that in the podcast. Just like for our complaints about it, the people who were there and the people who were watching it at the time were
Mm.
loving it. So there you
Hey,
go.
as did I back at the time when I was a young Marko maniac.
Mhm.
I was super into it, but
Yeah.
things change.
Yes. Mark,
Things change, don't they?
they do change. They do change. But I have some updates for you on a thing
Sure.
that's very important to me, a topic very
Okay.
close to my heart. Believe it or not, Mark, it's been over a year since the Titan Submersible popped. Can you believe that? It was June of last
I,
year.
I, I, I can't believe that. In my head, it feels like earlier this year. It feels like
Yeah,
March or April.
it's just yesterday that we were all glued to that story.
That
But
was
in the
great, wasn't it?
it really was. It was a moment
It
that we
truly
don't
was the
get
best
very
of times.
often. We were all watching the same thing.
Mm.
But in the past few weeks, as massive lawsuits have been filed, we're starting to get some absolutely gnarly news and details about what went on in that absolute disaster of an underwater rich people casket. And as you know, I was already in maritime mode lately, big time. So I've been clicking absolutely everything that MSN and Google serve me. The algorithms have got me eating out of their hands right now. So one of the things we already knew from the myriad documentaries and articles and specials about this is that a shit ton of experts looked at the submersible before this all happened and were like, are you insane? This is absolutely not seaworthy. And Stockton Rush, the owner, was like, bah, you're all haters. My boat rules. I'm going to do what I want, basically. Like,
My
in
boat
so
rules,
many
yours
words.
drool.
And he just straight ignored all the warnings. So, as you can imagine, when something catastrophic happens and your response to being warned was to completely ignore it out of ego, it's not a great legal defense.
He was in the bucket,
He
wasn't he?
was
He was down
he
there.
was, yes. So
Yeah.
he will not spend a cent on lawsuits, but his estate and the company and all of that are what these are against. So the estate of Paul-Henri Nagiolais, or PG, the guy piloting the submersible, has filed a lawsuit for damages of at least 50 million, which honestly seems low,
It does.
for putting PG into a ticking time bomb without knowing all of the things that engineers and experts had said about it. Like that's the thing, is none of these people were informed of any
Mm.
of this. Like at the time, I know that like he and others made a big deal of the thing they signed, right? Like, oh, there were multiple things in this about you're acknowledging that you could die on this,
Yep.
right? But that's different. Like knowing you could die. I mean, I could sign that when I get on a plane, right? But I
Every
assume
time I
that
pick up a prescription and I read the leaflet inside,
right,
it says you might have seizures,
exactly.
convulsions, bleeding from the rectum,
Yes.
blindness, jaundice.
Yep.
You know you're not going to get any of that
Right.
shit.
And we all just sign the little thing and pretend we read it and
Yeah.
we didn't, right? Like, because
Yep.
you assume that the proper things, precautions have been taken to make that medicine or that airplane or whatever not dangerous to you. And these are just,
Mm.
covering your bases here. Whereas in this case, they signed all of that, but those bases were not covered. He was told over and over and over how dangerous this was, but neither PG nor the people who went on it as tourists were informed that also, mechanical engineers say this isn't seaworthy, which is an important thing to know. You're going to make different decisions if you know that experts say this is dangerous, as opposed to being assured it's fine. You could die, but you're fine, you know? And among the many safety issues that the estate takes issues with was that goddamn Logitech F170 game controller.
Stop it. That did not happen. That didn't even happen.
Right? Because the submersible was blasted to smithereens, we'll never know exactly what went wrong, but that Rush was on film showing someone that stupid fucking controller and saying,
Yeah.
quote, at some point, safety is just pure waste. The Nargilets have a pretty good case that this wasn't the top of the line tech they should have been on the bottom of the ocean with.
Like if you were to board a plane and you caught a glimpse into the cabin and the pilot has got like a Mad Catz fucking pro controller,
right.
you'd be like, nah,
Like,
I'm all
questions.
right.
Yeah, I'm good. On top of this, the lawsuit claims.
I kind of had a point there.
Hmm.
At what point is there any liability on the passengers for? Because I am not a fucking, I'm not a deep sea submersible expert. I'm not an engineer. I know fuck
Right.
all about pressure and millibars and nothing of the sort. But I know a fucking pilot junk when I see it.
Well, I mean
At what
that,
point?
yeah, that comes down to, though, I mean, just what we were talking about, right, is that this was a tourist boat,
Yes,
right? And
yes,
they operated under the auspices of like everyone on it is crew, right? But it's a tourist excursion that people spend large amounts of money to get on. And when you run a tourist enterprise, you are in charge of the safety
yeah,
of the people on there. And
yep.
so surely you can
Fine.
be
Enough
like,
said. Enough said.
yeah, like you could look at it and be like just from a common sense standpoint, these people probably shouldn't have gotten in there. But like
But
from a
they did.
liability standpoint,
Yeah, yeah.
we trust a lot of things that maybe we shouldn't when
We
it
do.
comes to tourism. We've probably all done things and we strap into like people go bungee jumping on vacation,
It's true.
skydiving, all kinds
It's
of
true.
stuff, and we don't know what the fuck's going on. We just trust that they're strapping us in correctly.
Um, is is it a thing in malls in the States like it has become over here? Like if plenty of times I've walked through like a busy shopping center in, fucking Birmingham or London or whatever, and they have like pop-up stands where you can hook yourself up to a fucking IV vitamin drip.
I have
How long
seen
has
that
that been a
before.
thing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like super common here, but I have seen it. Yeah.
It's incredible.
I know, right? It's bonkers. Like what?
You can just take an hour out of your day
Yeah, in the mall.
and let some kid puncture you.
No, hard pass.
No thanks.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
But if I
it's
did that and I got fucking,
yeah, if you got gangrene and your arm falls
necrotizing
off, yeah.
fasciitis or whatever, would it be my fault or theirs? It would be
Yeah, it's
theirs,
like
of
maybe a
course.
little bit your fault for letting it happen, but from
Mm,
a liability standpoint, it would be on them. Depending on what you signed, unless the thing said you have the
yes, of
risk of
course.
gangrene here and your arm might fall off.
Warning, gangrene.
But anyway, on top of all of this stuff, the lawsuit claims that in the moments leading up to the implosion, the crew would have absolutely known what was coming and been scared out of their ever-loving minds.
Oh, that's a shame because the line that we were fed was over
Right,
in an
just
instant, mate.
instant,
The
right? And
kid with
that's
his Rubik's
still,
Cube, he would
yeah.
never have seen it coming.
That's still the like official line on this, but there's various things that point us to think that this is not true. For one, we know that the Titan dropped weights 90 minutes into the dive, which means they knew something was wrong and they decided to try to abort the dive. So if you remember, that was the way that the thing would rise to the surface, was by basically dropping ballast.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So that was the only way for it to rise, was to let the weights go, and it did that.
I bet they all dropped weights at some point, if you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
boy howdy. But
I mean,
yeah,
they
so
shit their pants.
yes, that's it. Anyways, so they did try to abort the dive. We know that. So they were definitely aware something had gone wrong. Now, of course, the thing we also know about this is that oftentimes things went wrong on these dives. A thing he also, I don't think, super shared with the people who were going on it, but it wouldn't have been unusual for Stockton Rush to have gotten nearly stranded in that thing, because it happened on multiple occasions that they had to emergency
Change the
go to the
batteries in his
surface.
fucking controller.
So, but they definitely knew something was wrong, right? They were trying to abort. The lawsuit continues, and this is, oh boy, rough. The crew may have heard the carbon fiber's crackling noise grow more intense as the weight of the water pressed on the Titan's hull. The crew lost communications and perhaps power as well. By experts' reckoning, they would have continued to descend in full knowledge of the vessel's irreversible failures, experiencing terror and mental anguish prior to Titan ultimately imploding. So they would have just been free falling, basically.
Genuinely, that just gave me goosebumps.
It's horrifying, isn't it? Like, it's one of the worst.
Hearing the cracks and knowing and still continuing to descend.
Yeah. I mean, you know how many submarine movies that I've watched, and that's one of the like most visceral things about those, is when like a sub is going down and everyone is like coming to terms with hearing the sounds of things pop and crack, and like you are just going to die, is what it is.
Just the best
horrifying
story. Wasn't it?
On top of this, there's more. The Canadian military says that they are highly confident that the banging they heard while searching for the sub was man-made. They first heard it the day after the sub went missing and continued to hear it between the 19th and the 22nd. They think that those were the sounds of an object striking a hull. In other words, it was the sound of the submersible knocking into the Titanic wreck site, which would have happened while it was still intact, based on the sounds that they heard. So this thing is just plunk, 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 bopping along the wreckage of the Titanic. They would have been, if this is correct, in the submersible alive for at least 4 days. 4 days.
So, from a certain angle, it was a successful mission.
They got to see the Titanic.
Didn't they?
Way up close. Yeah.
They got to spend some quality time with the ghosts.
Yeah. Great job, Stockton. Nailed that.
Yeah.
Crushed the assignment.
Because, you know, there was an angle of the story at the time was that ridiculous fucking window that you literally couldn't see fuck all out of.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, I take a little bit of warmth from that, a little bit of comfort from that they died amidst, you know, that which they paid the ultimate price to see.
Except they assumed that the power went out. There would have been no lights. They would not have seen that they were plunking into the Titanic.
That they were right on fucking
They were right on. I mean, it is.
They didn't even know.
Oh man, it is like, it's a like mythological story, honestly. Like
huge,
this is, you know, this is the stuff the Greeks made up, you know, and this is a real thing that happened. So, like I said, the official line is still that it imploded a few hours into the dive, but this info came from internal emails between the Canadian military, Coast Guard, and fisheries that cast major doubt on that line and says they may have just been in darkness, bopping around for several days.
If that had been like a Frank Darabont screenplay, that's how it would have ended. They would have crashed into the wreck of the Titanic and been completely unaware.
right
Yeah,
from the
exactly. Pull
outside,
back.
and they have no
Yes, and they have
idea.
no clue.
100%. So yeah, the Titan Submersible continues to be one of the most horrifying stories I've ever heard in my life, and I look forward to what else we inevitably find out about this
Yeah.
horror show.
And it feels as though the next logical step for, putting the billionaires into the contraption is low orbit kind of space flight, doesn't it? That's
Well, you know, one of the funny, I mean, this is what's so crazy about this stuff is like the billionaire hubris lives on. So, like, there's already a guy like trying to prove that actually this design was totally unsafe and everything like that. And he's going to go and do it. And it's like, okay, take a
and
handful
then
of
another
billionaires with
one.
you or whatever. Like, and like, yeah, all the, Elon's blowing up rockets like left and right, and they've got those people stuck on the ISS right now who like just
Sure.
fucking can't come home. And like at least those are scientists or whatever, but like this idea that we're just gonna like send people on like fun little tourist shit in the ocean, in the sky, whatever, like come on.
Yeah.
This is what they made mythology about. This is hubris.
Yeah, of
We need
course.
to
Icarus.
Yeah, right, exactly. We need to get our shit together. Come on, rich people. Or I mean, fine, go. Send home
No,
rich people. That's
I
okay.
say the very
Yeah.
opposite, Corri. Let
Yeah.
them play.
Let them go. That's
Shine
fine.
on.
You do
Mm.
you. If you refuse to learn something from your brethren, there you
Excellent
go.
update. Do you know what just as it occurs to me? So I was driving. I'm in a hotel right now, dear listeners, darling listeners. I'm in a hotel in York where I am for work, and uh, so 1 o'clock came around. I was in the car, and what do I do? Put on Radio 4. Of course, it's 1 o'clock. World at One, and amidst the stories of Ukraine and the American presidential race and the Aldi fascists in UK towns and cities. An item comes on where they're talking about a movie, right?
Okay.
And they play a snippet of a trailer, and it's a trailer I know. Do you believe in the boogeyman? Hang on,
Okay.
that's fucking Nancy Thompson. He's a guy, he's got knives for hands. They start talking about a Nightmare on Elm Street on the fucking World at One on Radio 4,
Nice.
which
Random, but
has
nice.
no, not random at all. It's
Okay.
been the BBFC has reclassified A Nightmare on Elm Street from an 18 down to a 15,
Oh, wow. Wow. That's really interesting.
isn't it? Isn't
Times
it?
changing as
Yes, indeed.
evidenced through movie ratings. What a
Yep.
concept.
And there was a little article. They gave it like 5 minutes at the end of the show on why that is. Why, many's the time on this show I've said that today's 15s are, the
Hmm.
18s of yesteryear.
Right.
Um, and they had a
Especially
guy.
given Britain's history with horror movies.
Exactly this. And there was a lovely little piece about kind of Elm Street at the time of its release about how its reputation did most of the work for it.
Hmm.
You were scared before you fucking hit play on your video. And why is it that a 15 today is an 18 of yesteryear? What has changed socially to
Right.
to 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 let us think that that's now permissible for a younger age group? Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, such
The
interesting
answer they gave was
questions.
just quite simply desensitization.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
that's probably what it really comes down to.
yeah, yeah,
We see a lot, we've all seen a lot more shit now
yes,
than we had in
yep.
1980. What year did that come out?
4.
84. Yeah, there
Mhm.
you go. I love that. And on that note, shall we talk about what we watched?
Oh, we certainly can. Let's take a little look at the old letterbox here. What have you watched this week, listeners?
This week, well, listen, this is definitely going to have to come up on our Snack to the Future. And I apologize in advance, but I don't because holy shit, this week I couldn't wait any longer. I finally watched Virtuosity, which was one of the things that and if when we did our watch along, our Is This Computer's watch along last month, I was insistent that this needed to go on the poll for possible movies to watch because
Mm.
when I was a young girl, I was here in this house. I remember seeing the commercial for Virtuosity on TV and it immediately falling in love with Russell Crowe. There is like a nude Russell Crowe scene in this, and
Ooh.
they showed like obviously the top half of him in the commercial, and I was like, is that the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life? And I deeply wanted to see this movie as a 10-year-old when it came out, but
I bet you
naturally it
did.
was not for 10-year-olds. So
Uh,
I
well,
did not.
nowadays maybe it would be. Who knows?
Nowadays, maybe.
Yeah.
No, it definitely is not for 10-year-olds.
No.
But I never did ever get a chance to see Virtuosity, and I finally did the other day. It's on Paramount Plus, and what does come through is that Russell Crowe is indeed deeply beautiful in this movie. Sweet Jesus. It's a very gorgeous serial killer, and he plays things cranked to 11.
Good.
This movie doesn't deserve how hard Russell Crowe goes in this movie.
Is he still beautiful? I mean, he's a bit bigger and a bit rougher
Yeah,
around the edges,
he's still
but
pretty gorgeous. Yeah.
yeah, he cut a very, he was a great Jor-El. He was fantastic in
Mm.
that Superman movie. He was fucking great. Like a third of that film was about him, wasn't it? And he was awesome, like a space action hero. Really cool.
Yeah, I think he can still pull off whatever. I like a bigger dude, so I am not
Yeah.
bothered by bigger Russell Crowe. A lot of gray in him. He's looking good. Absolutely. In
All
fact, my
right.
friend
Chill
Andrea
out.
is
Easy.
like, anyways, is it hot in here? Is my air conditioner's off? That's what it is. My friend Andrea has become obsessed with late stage Russell Crowe and has been like binging everything that he's in because she's like, he hit this age and it just like clicked for her. She's like, this man is gorgeous, and she's been going through everything. So she had watched Virtuosity weeks ago, and I think that was what like reminded me that I was like, I need to see this movie. It is incoherent. The
Mm.
basic premise of this movie is that there is like a VR system in this world in which we're
Say
in.
less. Enough said.
Right? And you can like jack into the VR or whatever, but there's like a serial killer on the loose in this VR who then gets brought into the real world, and he is programmed with like 170 serial killers' minds because he's like used as like a training thing or something like that. So this is Russell Crowe. They release him into the real world, and he becomes, just a murdering machine out in the real world, while also just being like having the time of his life, doing dancing and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Denzel is in it as well. Denzel is tracking him down.
See, 5 minutes ago, I thought I'd never seen this movie, but it's ringing all sorts of
Like
bells.
maybe you
I'm
have before.
certain this. Yeah,
Boy, it is an example of getting pretty much everything wrong, and it's absolutely worth
yeah.
watching. Like I said, completely incoherent, terrible movie, but Russell Crowe puts in a hell of a performance in it. And we will definitely have to snack to the future on Virtuosity.
Oh, I would love that. Look forward to that. Very nice. Very nice.
You're gonna hate it, but I think you'll appreciate having seen it.
You've sold it beautifully. You've got me,
Good.
you've got me really kind of looking forward to it. I'm anticipating
it. We'll do it next month.
Cool. Right. What have I seen? Let's see. Let's just blast through Despicable Me 4. I mean,
I've heard nothing but terrible things about this movie.
there's a lot of really good animation for kind of kids, isn't there?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
if you take maybe, I guess from where I'm sat, Pixar is the gold standard. I'm delighted that Incredibles 3 has been announced. Fucking yes, let's go. You've got Pixar, then mainline Disney just below that, and I guess maybe DreamWorks below that.
There's a lot of
Everyone loves the
independent
Shrek.
kids stuff.
Yeah.
There's tons.
Illumination is the bottom of the barrel that's underneath that barrel.
I mean, they have one trick, right? Basically, and
Yes.
that's why they've made 9,000 of the things based off of this one trick.
I hate the character designs. I hate the fucking garish palette. I hate the dialogue. Every fucking line is seemingly written for the trailer. I just hate it. I fucking hate Illumination animation movies. I fucking hate them. And it's all that same fucking French guy that is in the credits of them all. It's his
He's the Lasseter
of
Illumination.
Yeah, and it's terrible. It's just
I liked the first Despicable Me. After that, there's nothing useful for me in any of those.
No.
And I thought the most eviscerating review possible of this came from our dear listener, John Benfield,
Banners.
who,
Banners,
yep.
who I recently bumped into on LinkedIn, of all places.
Oh,
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
that. That's amazing.
I'm never on LinkedIn, and I jumped on there for the first time in fucking
And it
months to find a
recommended him.
message from John Bedfield.
Oh,
All right, Mark, hey, Banners. Yeah, good.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But he rated it on Letterboxd and said that he watched it with, I believe, I can't remember, it's like his 4-year-old or something like in there, a young child.
Mm.
Um, and the child liked it, but hasn't asked to see it again. Which is
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the most, yeah,
Condemning, yes.
right? Like if a kid isn't like, it hasn't made it their whole personality,
Yeah.
it has failed
It
deeply.
completely didn't make a dent. So fuck that. Let's take a look. Now, look, my Tudor era is over, by the way. It's finished.
I love this. Let me just like give like a tiny bit of background
Bit of
on
context. Yeah,
this.
sure.
The other day, Mark texts me a picture of his television, and it says, "It's your boy," and it's Robert
Robert Shaw.
Shaw. And I immediately went, "Are you watching A Man for All Seasons?" Because I
And I
binged all
was.
of Robert Shaw's movies a few years ago. And let me
I
tell you,
was.
Robert Shaw's costume design in every single thing he's ever been in is extremely distinct. And so it's like, "Are you watching A Man for All Seasons?" And Mark was like, well, yes, I am. I'm into Tudor things now. I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." He's like, "It's not gonna last. I won't remember anything, but I'm into this now."
Yeah.
The next day, I happen to ask, "Oh, you said you were going to see 2 plays. You told me you went to see Sister Act 2. What was the other thing that
Just
you
Sister Act, the
saw?"
musical
I
Sister
mean,
Act,
not
yeah.
Sister Act 2, sorry, Sister Act the musical. "What was the other thing you saw?" To which he responded somewhat sheepishly, "Horrible Histories, The Tudors."
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
it was
love this so much. Like you were gonna slide by. You were never going to tell me that was why you were in your Tudor era. And then I was like, fuck, she asked.
yeah, it
It's
got me.
so
It was
good.
really interesting. It was really
And for
interesting.
Americans, Horrible Histories is a kids' book series turned television show.
Oh,
That's
it's an
basically like Bill
institution.
Nye
It's
the
a British
Science Guy.
institution.
Yeah, it's Bill Nye the Science Guy, but with history.
Yep.
If you watch the show Ghosts,
Yep.
that is based off of BBC show Ghosts. That is the same people who do Horrible Histories. So you're connected to
The
it.
the show itself has attracted lots of kind of big names in British comedy.
Hmm.
David Baddiel has been in it. I think Frank Skinner has been in it. Rowan Atkinson has been in it.
Oh
And this is
wow.
like a mid-afternoon fucking CBBC show. You know what I mean? For some reason, it has this pedigree attached to it.
I mean, it's a
Um,
great show.
oh, it is. It's terrific. Owen in particular is fucking gaga for it. He absolutely
It's so
loves it.
good.
And whilst on an overnighter in London, we went to see Horrible Histories Tudors, and it was super interesting.
Nice. Love
It
that.
was so interesting. And you know that I've got a kind of a little bit of a fucking Jones for royalty anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not,
True.
and let me try and fucking lay this out. Why? I hate it, right? I
Right.
hate,
Yeah, it's
you know
certainly
that I
not an
hate.
affinity.
No. You know I hate it, but I also am fascinated, grimly fascinated by the stranglehold that it has on society
Hmm.
and how we got where we are.
Right.
Where politicians, when sworn in members of parliament, have to swear fealty to the king and
Hmm.
all his future descendants.
Right.
Fuck off, will you? How the fuck did we get there? That's fucking wild.
Totally.
And I found Horrible Histories, Terrible Tudors, super interesting
I
about,
love that.
um, about the fucking power that Henry VIII wielded over the fucking, just deciding to dismantle the church just so he could get divorced. That's fucking insane, just insane
Right.
shit. So I thought, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this my personality for 48 hours. Um,
Nice.
and part of that was watching A Man for All Seasons, the story of Sir Thomas More, and his role in refusing to add his assent to the oath, which would have written, enshrined in law Henry VIII's right to divorce.
Hmm.
Uh, Listen, subject matter aside, and my, peccadillos out of the equation entirely, what a piece of work,
It
though.
is. It's a great movie.
Fucking high caliber stuff from the cast. Like I said, we've got Robert Shaw in there. You've got fucking John Hurt in there.
Hmm.
Um, lots of that guys
Yeah, definitely.
of but esteemed but British versions. You know what I mean? Really, really estimable performers.
Hmm.
Adapted from a play, which of course I love. It's like watching the
Yeah.
highest caliber of drama. It is gripping. Just the classics are classics for a reason, and this is just beautiful. It's exactly what I needed, and I learned. You know what I mean? It
Right.
contextualized a lot of stuff about that period for me. Oh,
Yeah, I know
it
pretty
was
much
it was a treat.
nothing about any of that. So A Man for All Seasons was very much kind of a like isolated thing for me. It had no
Mm,
context for anything, but still a great movie. So
yeah,
I've
yeah,
like now kind of got various interests, probably for similar reasons to you, in royalty. And it's always kind of a thing that I'm like, maybe I'll read books on it, but there's like so many of them
yes,
that it
yes,
is a lot to start from scratch on because we don't learn about any of them except, the one that we got freedom from.
yeah,
So yeah, it's completely out of my wheelhouse, but a thing that I have like an interest that like one day I may sit down and
yes,
learn stuff about British royalty.
yes. I was edutained, is what I
Love
was.
that. Big
Yeah,
into it.
it felt like going to the actual theater, not to see Sister Act or whatever. Wonderful stuff. Yes.
I talked on the Joag fan cave about having watched Ghost Shark. I won't go into that because you can go and watch what I said about it on
Right.
the fan cave, but just suffice to say it's a very silly, dumb movie that, if you watch it in a group, I think it's a great time. I was dragged a little bit watching by myself, but it's a dumb movie with heart, and somehow managed to give me a nightmare
Ooh,
afterwards.
cool.
Yeah,
Nice. Love that
I
for you.
was, I could not believe it when I woke up. I was just like, did I seriously just have a ghost shark nightmare?
You never know what's going to happen to
Wow.
you. You never know where they're going to come
You
from.
never know. Yeah, right. So Ghost Shark, hey, it's a fun time if you like kind of a schlocky, sci-fi channel-esque horror
Yep.
movie. Ghost Shark is a
Yep.
good ride.
Nice. Love that. We watched Alien. I mean, because you
We
gotta.
did. Yes, we did indeed, because
Um,
obviously Alien Romulus is coming to us
yeah.
this week.
And the kind of review embargo seems to be up, and
Mhm.
reactions
It's like the
are.
social embargo is up,
There
so
you go. Yes,
they
yes,
can
yes.
post them. I took a whole bunch of scrap shots, not a word,
All right,
snapshots.
grandma. Yeah.
I took some scrap shots. I'm
Man,
going to print them out
collage.
and send it to you. I took some screenshots last night of some of the ones that I was seeing initially come out to send to you and I saved them because if I send you something at night, in the morning, you just swipe it away and don't look at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like very. I mean, I saw one kind of tepid review of it that someone had posted, but that I was largely seeing like this was so much fun and this is what I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
So very stoked
Uh,
for that.
I read a fantastic piece interviewing and looking at the process of Fede Alvarez in Total Film this month. And you know what excited me in the run up to Evil Dead releasing
Hmm.
was reading about the approach that he takes on set,
Hmm.
i.e., building as many physical sets as possible and having them physically linked as they would
Mm.
be in
Yeah.
real life, so that the you can film the action as it flows from one location to
Yeah.
the next, and that's very much seemingly the approach he's stuck with for Alien Romulus. There's a real kind of sense of geography and physical
Hmm.
space to
Hmm.
the sets, which I'm all about.
Yeah.
Um, Fantastic word of mouth about the practical effects, about the gore, and and it's wonderful to read that wherever possible he has brought crew members, designers,
Mm.
engineers, artists with him from Uruguay to work on his productions as they've
That's
got
cool.
progressively kind of bigger and more high profile, which I fucking love. This
Yeah,
guy's the real
definitely.
deal. He really is.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah. Yep, cool as fuck.
Yes, so we watched Alien, obviously
We
not
did.
Alien Romulus.
Uh,
And I mean, what is there to say about
if,
Alien?
yeah, nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all to say. Uh, other than put it in a vault. Put
Right.
that film in a fucking vault, man. Really.
Yeah, send that to, that'll be the time capsule that we
Send it out on
leave
a
behind.
probe.
Send it on, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Send it into space, broadcast it. What do you want us to know?
Yep.
It's gonna be
Um,
Alien.
I I don't want to gloss over it, but at the same time, what is there to say? The design, the industrial kind of space, the industrialization of space
Mm-hmm.
that's baked into Alien. It's condensation on walls and it's fucking grease and it's heat, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
screaming fucking solar winds. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the fucking terror of the void and the fucking
Yeah.
intruder walking around with a big dick for a head, and it's the fucking milky android, and it's Sigourney Weaver. It's
Yeah.
alchemy. It is alchemy.
I think like another thing that really struck me watching it is kind of the way this movie uses like silence, and not just
Beautiful.
as
That
like
was literally my next
yeah, it's
phrase.
like it's not just as like a ooh, silence is scary sort of thing, but in just sort of the mundanity about of the
Yep.
way you
It's a
go about
workplace.
like
It's a
work. It's a
commercial enterprise.
workplace,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah, so there isn't, constant music throughout the whole thing. There's not like a
Yeah,
whole bunch of, sounds that wouldn't be there, bleep bloop, whatever, the kinds of stuff. It is, just the sounds of what it would be like if you were working in a space
yeah,
industry,
yeah.
and
I mean,
sometimes
it.
nobody's talking, sometimes there's, light
Yeah, sure.
tapping, things
Yeah.
like that. And I think that's so effective in that
If you're
movie.
working at your job, you're not constantly just gibbering away to yourself, are
Right,
you? There is
exactly.
silence, and there are moments of solitude.
Hmm.
It does have that kind of turn of the decade between the 70s and the 80s kind of technology.
Hmm.
Is this computers? You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
interface and the fucking LEDs. It takes a stab at what interstellar travel might look like in
right.
the future. And yeah, all right, it looks a little bit quaint, maybe, but
Sure.
fuck, to criticize that is to completely miss the point.
Yeah.
Um, it's a
Yeah.
big vision of a film.
And I think one of the things that it has going for it too is that the technology itself is somewhat sparse, and so
Yeah,
that it doesn't revolve. It's not, the movie doesn't revolve around, say, like Running Man, where they're constantly inputting codes into things and stuff like
sure.
that. Like, the fact that it is somewhat sparse means that we're not constantly going like, oh, that looks dated or whatever.
Let me
The
suggest
place in
something
which
to
they're
you.
working does not look dated.
Let me suggest something to you. I've said on plenty of occasions how, ha ha ha, how quaint I find it that interface. That this is the same kind of thing they used in The Thing and in The
Hmm.
Fly, where
Yes.
you're asking your computer questions. Computer, what are the
Right,
odds of this happening?
exactly.
Uh, that seemed that seemed quaint and a miss until like a year or two ago, because that's how we're
Right.
talking. That's how we're interfacing with Chat GPT and fucking Gemini and whatever. Now
Hmm.
we're literally typing it in sentences. We're asking it fully parsed questions.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. It has come back
it,
around to that.
yep, it fucking time told on that one.
Go figure. Except that it
Mm.
would get the answer right in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the difference. But yeah, watched Aliens. I after watching it for the fan cave, I watched it chapter 2. Which I mentioned
It's a
last
shame.
week, I don't have a problem with this movie. I think to me, there isn't problems with this movie that aren't present in the story it.
Okay.
And
Well,
I
yeah.
like that's so like I don't know what you would do to like fix it. I know a lot of people think maybe you could have made this one and just taken out a
All
lot of
day
stuff.
long.
I really like the like learning what is going on with the adults. I like kind of visiting what has happened to them, and I like the kids' stories as well. A lot of people say you just didn't need to include so much of the kids, but I like seeing that those throwbacks to them. I don't know. I just don't. It's not as good as the first one. Don't get me wrong. I just don't
Mm.
like hate it. Like I don't see such a huge drop in the quality between the two as people seem to see. Like to me, that's
Mm.
not like I see a lot of people that it's like 4-star movie to 1-star movie, and I don't think it's that steep a drop in quality. I think
Maybe not that steep, but
yeah.
I maintain that between the two of them, there's one solid movie.
Yeah, and I get that. I just don't think that it's like so huge a shift that the second one is not enjoyable. I really like these characters. It's a character-driven thing. The original filmed version of it is a 6-part
Of
miniseries or
course.
whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Like it's a 1,200-page book, determining what's important. Andy Muschietti, his priorities on this were sort of dealing with the trauma that these kids faced and, what their adult lives had come to and, how they were processing that. I enjoyed it. Uh, so,
I got a huge
and
kick out of seeing the boss in there himself.
oh yeah,
Steve's
that cameo
cameo. I
is
loved
so
that.
fun.
Loved it,
Yeah,
loved it, loved it.
Stephen King's cameo as like the pawn shop owner in It
Yeah.
Chapter 2 is absolutely delightful. It's not just one of those sort of one-line things, but he gets like a good scene of being a crotchety old man. Um, and it's so fun. I mean, the other thing is like, and a lot of people are annoyed by this too, is that it's very funny. Like the whole movie is also extremely funny.
Mm.
And I get a kick out of that, and a lot of people find that annoying. But I love the humor in It Chapter 2. So yeah, I had fun with that, even though other folks don't seem to like it as much. But watching it in my own home too, where I can pause it and go get Ruffles and pee and things like that helps.
That makes up for a lot, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes. You have one more.
I will. Yes,
No,
I've
two
got two
more.
more. In fact, I'm going to talk about humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. And yes, that
Such a
is the
great
title of the
title.
film. Once again, humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. What a fantastic fucking title.
And
What
I'm not going to keep making you say that over and over again. So usually we repeat the titles constantly, but just FYI, we do put the titles of the movies we watch in the description, so you
yes.
can find it there.
Very nice. Nice PSA, Corri. Thank you. What we have here is a I kind of hate what I'm about to say here, but it's a
Oh boy.
deconstructionalist vampire movie, you know?
Okay.
Um, which I'm all for, right? Let's
Okay.
just get that clear. I love that the mythology, the trope, the archetype of a vampire is now so well known
They kind of
and
have
so
to
kind
take
of
it apart.
baked in that we can do that now. We can just
Hmm.
take it apart and play with it and look at its constituent parts and what ifs and run scenarios through the vampire mythos. And
Right.
that's what we have here. We
Love
have a
it.
French, perfectly acceptable, quirksome French take. The premise is a young vampire girl who unfortunately suffers with empathy,
Mm,
and her fangs just won't come out, and she simply cannot bring herself to kill.
nice.
Uh, and we look at her family dynamic. We look at the expectations. It's an allegory for, I dare say, puberty, a sexual awakening, coming of
Sure.
age. Um, and is there a way, I wonder, if a vampire could live a full life in a humane way,
Right.
you know?
Without
And it's a lovely idea.
murdering.
It's a lovely, exactly, exactly. It's a
Hmm.
lovely idea. It's you've got high school kind of comedy. Um, the family dynamic is a little bit what we do in the shadows. It's
Sure.
the take is a little bit girl walks home alone at night. We're in that kind of place.
Okay.
It isn't as good as either of those,
Fair enough.
but I don't I think it's good at what it wants to be. It's quite breezy. It's quite lighthearted. No gore to speak of, really. It's
Okay.
a like I said, it's an allegory piece. It's a study. It's a character piece. It's a comedy. It's light, and it's a solid and easy 3 French stars.
Beautiful. Love that.
Yeah, man.
And a few more stars to your final
Oh,
watch.
chuck another two on there. I had another go at Godzilla -1. Uh, uh so much weight and gravity to this film. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
you've got PTSD and survivor's guilt and national shame
Hmm.
and fucking Japanese kind of family dynamics.
Yeah.
And you've got kind of, national guilt, post-war guilt.
Hmm.
You've got a nation kind of struggling to find its identity after, such a fabric-rending event as a world war.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Godzilla,
And also Godzilla.
Also Godzilla.
Yes.
Godzilla minus one's fucking just a real piece of work that any director, any fucking filmmaker from any nation would be proud to put their name to.
100%. Yeah.
It just steps way beyond what the box that you might think a Godzilla movie would sit within.
Yeah, we were talking about it last night, just texting back and forth about this, and just basically like, I mean, it's basically a perfect movie, right? Like what
wild,
what can you complain about in this? It's got everything. It pretty much sticks the landing on everything it's trying to do, and it goes far beyond the expectations you have for it.
And it does them all brilliantly.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Godzilla minus one yet, I think it's on Netflix now. It's definitely on something, and I'm pretty sure it's Netflix.
It is indeed on Netflix.
We can all enjoy it at this point.
Next time I watch it, I think if it isn't there already, the black and white version is also
on there. Yeah, I think it is on there.
That'll be the next go.
Very nice. Yeah, I got to rewatch that as well.
Yeah, man.
So one more thing, Mark.
Go for it. Oh, no. Do you have any more watches, Corrigan?
No, I think that was pretty much everything this week. It's been kind of a busy week, so.
It has, sure has. And on the next show, I'm delighted to think that we'll be talking about a new Alien movie.
Yes, indeed. Gimme.
Remind me to talk about Alien 3 next week.
Yes, okay. And maybe I'll catch, or maybe we'll catch Aliens, all that jazz before it comes out. We'll see what happens. But
yes,
our closing question this week.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not such a deep question, but a question nonetheless. Mark, this week, the Olympics closed, and we all were treated to the white girl audacity of Australian breakdancer Reagan.
Yeah.
Who is just
beautifully put, by the way. Take a bow. White girl audacity. Nice.
Deeply bad at breakdancing, and yet was in the Olympics, and went viral with her horrific routine, which I have seen like people actively do in their living rooms. One of the things we always say when it comes to the Olympics, in fact, Chris Statlander and Harley Cameron both did a version of it.
Which they knocked up in a couple of minutes.
Right, exactly. One of the things that we often say about the Olympics is like, we can all sit at home and judge it and all that kind of stuff, but like none of us could make it. I think after seeing Ray Gun, we all found one thing we think, maybe we could do. I'm curious, are there any Olympic sports, Mark, and listener, you at home as well, are there any Olympic sports that you think with some practice, you, 45-year-old Mark, could potentially do?
What, at World Olympic standard?
You could compete, even if you were like the worst one if you were the ray gun, but you
from
think you could
zero.
From you have never done this before to you could potentially just qualify.
That's a great
Olympics,
question.
or even get really good at, but like you could qualify in the Olympics.
Right. Okay, let me just establish some parameters here.
Sure.
So money is no object.
Money's no object. You have all the time and money in the world to train for whatever you decide to
world-class kind of trainers, dietitians, equipment.
Yes.
Right. Outside of, so look, probably I think all of them except
all of them.
Well, no, hang on, hear me out.
Okay, go ahead.
Not swimming.
Right.
Because I don't like it. I think it's silly, if I'm honest.
Wow.
And I can't ride a bike.
That's true. You can't ride a bike. You don't think you could learn to ride a bike?
No, I don't. I don't want to, is the point. Right.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, my question is, what thing could you train enough and learn to do?
At almost 46, I feel as though to now learn to ride a bike would be an admission of failure on my part. I've done 45 years of not riding a bike, and I'm fine, right? I haven't suffered from it for not learning to ride a bike one bit.
All right.
So I'm not now gonna go and dedicate my life to becoming the best at bike sports, right? I'm not doing that. So
Okay, fair
write
enough.
that one off.
Sure.
Swimming, forget it. My eyesight won't allow it, I'm afraid.
Yep. Good point.
Also, I don't like it. I don't enjoy. I'm comfortable with my little plodding breaststroke, and that's as good a swimmer as I ever want to be, right?
Okay. Sure.
Now the rest of them, fucking bring it on, no problem. Uh, nah, bollocks.
That's
Wrestling?
crazy.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Wrestling, I've already got like a functional understanding of because I've watched a lot of it. I know some of the core principles of
Okay.
wrestling. Tuck your chin, sell for the other guy, make the other guy look good.
Sure.
Get your hand up if there's a chair shot coming in, protect your head. And the apron is the hardest
They
part
get
of
a
the
lot of
ring.
they get a lot of chair shots in Olympic wrestling.
It's wrestling, it's all the same. Running, I kind of do anyway, so I would just do more of it.
You realize, like, one of the things about this, and this is what, like, you know,
You asked.
well, yeah, but one of the
Don't.
things, like, I was asking for like a little bit of realism here, but think about
No.
like the boxer who there was the whole hubbub
Oh,
about,
wait a
right?
minute. Yeah.
And one of the things about Olympic athletes is that many of their body compositions are such that they are better at things than those of us whose bodies are composed
So
differently.
the genetic
There's a
advantage.
genetic component to why some people are extremely good at something. So like a runner isn't just good at running because they run a lot. Likely it has to do with their like muscle composition and things like that that make them especially fast in ways
I'll
that
tell you,
the
yeah,
rest
but
of us
you are,
aren't.
I'll tell you something that you're disregarding here, something you're writing off, right?
Okay.
Mindset, Corrigan, right?
No excuses, no motivation. Just
Mindset.
mindset.
Mindset. I think mindset can overcome, put mindset up against genetics, right? And a truly deranged mindset can go a long way. Just go fucking ham
I
on
think there's
it.
a
And
degree to which that's true, though. I think that there is a degree that, like, you know, a degree of unhingedness about it can take
yeah,
you far in certain things.
yep.
I don't necessarily
Mania.
think that's going to be stronger than some other factors, per se.
Let me introduce you to a little fella called the honey badger. All right? You know about this little guy?
Tell me about the honey badger.
Yeah, you do a little bit of research, mate, right?
Think you'll find
Yeah.
it's very
Right.
relevant.
Just let me talk about a few others.
Okay.
Tests of accuracy, like shooting.
Okay.
Whack me up with all of that Metal Gear Solid style fucking equipment.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. No problem. I've played games.
I'm
I've played
I'm
video
shit at
games.
that. I have
I could
no
do
aim
that
at all.
with the special glasses. I
Okay.
could, yep. Just, I think I'd be really good at accuracy sports.
Nice.
Let's write off boxing. Put that along. I don't want to get hit,
Sure.
right? One
Yep.
thing.
Yeah. That's a good
I mean,
reason.
I want to win a medal, but I don't want to get punched in the fucking head
Yeah, that's
repeatedly
fair.
to do it, right? Don't want to do that. What's that? What's the art? Is it artistic swimming? Is that what it's called?
Oh, like the thing where they like synchronized swimming. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
they
yeah.
call it
No, not doing
artistic
that. That's in
swimming.
water. Forget that.
That looks, yeah, that's sorcery to me, even as a
Ridiculous.
swimmer. I don't know how they do it. I watch it and I'm like, I don't understand the like gravity. I don't understand the physics of
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
doing.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
impossible. I don't get it.
Buoyancy.
Yeah, and that they
Um,
somehow stay in like they certainly can't hear the music that well under. Like, I don't know how they do any of it.
that's a great point.
You
Fencing, right?
think you do fencing?
I do. I think I would excel at fencing because what
Okay.
happens when you take technique
Mhm.
and rage? What happens then? Huh? What happens then?
Okay.
Gold medals happen then. And I can learn one, but I've got the other inside me.
It's very Cobra Kai of you.
Do you understand?
Hmm.
And if I'm wake up, do fencing for 12 hours, go to
Sure.
bed, if I do that for long enough, then yes, I would be an Olympic fencing champion.
Okay. That
Let me
seems
see.
reasonable. That one seems
Yeah, it does.
reasonable to me.
So you initially were all like,
Well,
But
see, I think the ones that make sense to me are like ones that are more like develop a skill of precision, right? Because the ones that really none of us can hope to do are the ones that do have like a degree of geneticness to
no,
it. Although, like, I think I've mentioned this before, like I took like my 23andMe DNA test and it was saying that like the composition of muscle in my body is that of elite athletes. So maybe I could
wow,
do various things if I dedicated my mind to it, although the EDS would probably get in the way. But the muscle in my body is composed like people who compete at these kinds of levels.
yeah,
But not everybody is built like that, like, or with gymnastics, right? You have to start really early or your body will outgrow the ability to
no,
do these things. You will.
no.
That's how
I
it
think
works, Mark.
that I think that you can you can fucking beat that. You can reverse that
You think
with
nobody in
enough
history has ever tried to beat that? You think they've all just given up? Nobody
without
has ever had
any
the
other
mindset.
distractions, with no other focus, right? Other than achieving excellence. I think the other guys with the genetics, right? They won't see you coming, mate. They'll
Yeah,
be
I don't
caught
think that's
napping.
true.
They'll
I
be
think there are
resting on
plenty
their
of people
genetics.
who have
Oh, I'm so
wanted to do
tall, I'm so
that.
strong. And then while you think you're just going to turn up and take that old boosh, bang, 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 here comes the honey badger. Fucking crazy Mark on the fucking pommel horse, and he's got gold.
Dear listener, what do you think? A, can Mark do any sport? And B, what could you do? What sport
Yeah.
do you think you'd
I'm
have in the
known for my
bag?
grace,
So
right?
everybody says it.
I'm known as a very
Um,
graceful, athletic man,
people
and
say I'm like a fawn.
knowing
Or
that would carry me to the podium every time.
mm. I think I could do the kayaking, that weird kayaking one that they
Yeah, of course you
do.
could. Of course you could.
That one feels like that's and like everybody who does it is like 36. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I think I could probably get to the point where I could do the kayaking thing.
Think on, listeners. Tell
Yeah,
us all
think
about
on
it.
it.
Tell us.
Tell us all about it. And until next week, dear Olympians, one thing you gotta do,
You got to stay spooky.
do it.